I'm here to talk about incorporating new technology into your decoration operation, and I did change the title just a little bit from what it says on you guys' flyers there. I did that because I want to have a little bit more of a Beastie Boy type feel to this whole thing, so I apologize that you guys' flyers are wrong, but it is my fault, but it was worth it for me. I'm going to start off with why me? Why am I up here talking with you guys? Most of the time, you see someone up here, you're talking to an equipment manufacturer who is maybe showcasing their latest technology. Paint suppliers, making sure that you're fully aware of everything they have to offer, right? I don't fit that criteria either way. But, well, to be perfectly honest with you, when I got to the point in my career where I was seeking additional information to make process improvements, I realized there was not a lot of information out there about glass decoration. You know that. For those who don't know, about 25 to 30% of our revenue that we generate at Grandstand is by printing on t-shirts, right? There is a plethora of information out there on textile printing. There's monthly magazines dedicated to printing on textiles. I mean, everything from the latest equipment, supplies, even articles on the most efficient way to lay out your screen room, right? Although a lot of the information does carry over into cylindrical printing world, not all of it does. So I'm at this point, I'm struggling a little bit, I'm seeking information, and quite honestly, I found a lot of value with the SGCD Tech Notes. They're still on our website. I'm guessing they're short articles, probably released, they're released years ago, but they're probably released on the newsletters, I'm assuming, and just short little articles about, you know, proper annealing, you know, firing curves, stuff that I didn't know. Although the 1 or 1.5 page article didn't really solve all the world's problems for me, it definitely allowed me to narrow my focus and really just kind of sort out my problems or find somebody to talk to, but allowed me to find some information to be able to improve the processes. So I decided to come up here and kind of speak and just kind of, as my way to give back. I've bothered a lot of you guys as suppliers and exhibitors out here over the years, some probably to the point where you don't even want to see my name on your phone anymore. But again, this is my way to give back. Maybe I'll inspire some others to come up here and talk and get a little bit of information and build the value in the SGCD. As Myra's talking about in between, before my introduction, we do now videotape these, as you can see. They will be posted on the SGCD website for everybody to view and for members to be able to see if they're not able to attend the show, and for future members seeking information like myself. A little bit about Grandstand. Chris Piper bought the company, bought a couple of apparel presses out of the back of a trophy shop back in '88, and that's the year he graduated college. It was also the year that KU, he graduated from the University of Kansas. That's when they won the KU basketball championship that year. So it was a big year for him. He was going to take over the world one t-shirt at a time, right? He ended up purchasing a small marketing company that printed a lot of shot glasses and coffee mugs, plastic bottles and stuff. He really wanted to focus on the plastic bottles, bike bottles, you know, 1, 2, 3 colors. And unfortunately for him, that business was moving to China. But on the kind of better side of things, the craft brewery world was starting to ignite at that time. And what I mean by that was, it was new enough that everybody had to help each other out. They really had to come together and share information and help one another against these big beer Goliaths like Anheuser-Busch and Coors and whatnot, especially when they own the distribution companies, keeping their beers out from being able to get sold in the liquor stores. So not unlike us, they shared a lot of information. They helped each other grow. And to the point where the first brewery in Kansas, the owner had to lobby the state to get the laws changed since Prohibition. And he did, and he came to Chris and said, hey, I need some glassware printed. And because we were at the right place, at the right time, it made it to where we grew with that market, because as they were growing and helping each other out, everybody was sharing information. Hey, where do you get your kettles from? Where do you get your tanks from? Hops and glassware. So we grew with it. Since then, we broadened our focus into craft beverage, and we are positioning ourselves to move into new markets, just as any business would. Why me again? In my career in Grandstand, we've onboarded a few pieces of machinery. When I first started there, we had a small one-color semi-automatic miller, And if we were doing a 3-color shot glass, it meant 3 trips to the dryer and 2 times to the press with a paper clip for registration. Since then, the next big step for us, for me anyways, was adding a 2-color thermoplastic press. And talk about seeking information, this is where I really try to get out there. You would think screen printing is screen printing, but it's not. If you're moving from, solvent or UV and you're going into thermoplastic, you start talking about heating your squeegees and stuff, adding heat to your screens, it creates a whole different world for you. I remember the first time I was printing a 2016 piece pint run, 1 color, it was looking beautiful, thermoplastic has a real good crispy line, and about 300 pieces in, I couldn't figure out why I didn't have a nice crispy line anymore. It's because I melted my squeegee. My squeegee here is too hot. So, learned from my mistakes. Since then, we've also grown from 8 to 208 employees. We've added decal, water slide decal printing, went from kilns to Lears, to now we have a few UV machines, quite a few semi-automatic machines, full apparel area, screen room to accommodate over 300 screens a day, and we more than dabble with digital. First thing you want to think about when you want to incorporate new technology into your workplace is safety. And this isn't one of the places where everybody wants to start, so get it done, and get it done early. If you don't have a safety representative at your factory, I recommend start looking in one. Even if it's just an employee that you can get sent to get a 40-hour course of OSHA and start learning the hazard analysis. New inks and chemicals require new job hazard analysis. So you're going to bring in a new machine, you're adding new inks, and if you don't do an SDS review, you're not going to know if OSHA has permissible exposure limits on some of those inks. Some of those inks, you have to have a measurement. If you get hit by an OSHA inspection and they come in and you haven't performed that test, you're going to be under scrutiny. Some other things to think about is, does the equipment have proper machine guarding? Out of the last 3 pieces of equipment we bought, 2 were from large reputable companies. We didn't have to worry about that so much. But one of them was an old used banding machine that hadn't been used in years. And the machine guarding is not right on it. We have to modify it. So it's something else you want to consider. I know this one sounds crazy about walking surfaces above 48 inches, but anybody with the Lear probably needs to think about that a little bit. How often you need to get up on the platform. And sound, that's probably a huge one. 90 decibels per 8-hour time-weighted average is what you're allowed to have by the OSHA standard. Anything over that, you have to have a hearing conservation program. And do you know how loud it is where your operator works next to that machine all day? If you don't, you need to figure that stuff out. The other thing I highly recommend is get an industrial hygienist. Your safety manager or representative doesn't have to do all the work themselves, but I highly recommend a dedicated safety industrial hygienist. Get them in there on a regular basis to where they know you, they know your processes, and that helps the whole process out a little bit.
So Nevin, you bring someone from the outside that comes contract with to do it?
Yes, so what we do is, for instance, we added a new ink into our environment not too long ago. We grab all the SDSs, we send it to our industrial hygienist and say we'd like you to do a review. They end up reviewing that information, and they determine what we need to go measure. Now, what makes this hard for somebody who's not trained, like a fully trained safety representative, is that an industrial hygienist can take an SDS and look at that and say, well, yes, this is a hazardous substance, and yes, it does have a PEL, but there's less than 1%, and they're using it in this manner. And so therefore, I know that they're never going to get to that level we need to worry about. But they can say, well, I'm not sure about this chemical. So now what we do is, the guys at work love it. They come into work and they start their day, and you got an industrial hygienist saying, hey, John, how you doing today? What we're going to do to you is we're going to put a little pump, on the back of your belt. We're going to hose up to your collar up here, and it's going to be pumping air all day because it's close to your nose. Because there's only 2 ways you can measure for air contaminants, and that's one of them. It's pumping air through a filter, they capture all that particulate, they send it off to a lab, and they get a time-weighted average of parts per million for whatever chemical they're searching for. The other one is just a badge. You put it on there, you open it up, kind of like an air freshener, if you would. After a certain amount of time, they close it up, send it off to the lab. And then they send it to the lab, it comes back, and now you have this nice third-party report that says, hey, we came in on this day, tested for these chemicals, through these processes, and the sound level, and this is what our response was. You post that up in your environment. Make sure you have that one-on-one with the employees you tested. Let them know ahead of time before everybody else finds out that everything's good, or you have to wear a respirator, whatever it might happen to be. And then you post that up in that work environment for a while, and that goes a long way. Well, OSHA says you're supposed to do it, but that goes a long way in making sure your employees feel safe too. So. Floor plan. This is my favorite one because we plan today to accommodate the growth of tomorrow. A lot of people think that a 3 to 5 year plan is just kind of an exercise to go through, right? It's not. Really, if you don't have a real thorough 3 to 5 year plan based upon low growth and high growth, and you don't know what kind of equipment you're going to have in there, take some time. Take some time, sit down, and figure out a 3 to 5 year plan, because in the building we've been in now, this is our 3rd building, we've rearranged our production floor 3 times. Because when we moved that building, we didn't think we'd be outgrowing it until now. We've already had an expansion. We didn't think we'd have all the leers and dryers and big, larger equipment we have now. But, we now know that you have to have that plan a little bit more solid. So, build that 3 to 5 year plan and plan for the growth of tomorrow. Installing equipment from other countries. Now, this is uncommon in our industry, of course, as we all know. But will your plumber know the conversion from MR to PSI? I know it sounds goofy, but your plumber is regional. They're so used to working on the same piece of equipment, the same gas measurements, the same everything, that when they walk into an establishment here in the United States, they're almost cocky. Like, yeah, I got to put a regulator on here. Who cares? I can't tell you, there's probably been, 3 times that we went to go install a piece of equipment and the plumbing supply store in town didn't have the regulator, or they could get the regulator, but it wasn't the right spring that goes inside. So they got to go get a spring from another source, and now you just slow down your install. And if you have technicians waiting, they're tapping their feet. You're paying a lot of money. So make sure that your plumbers know to get in front of that. How about electrical? Do you have enough electrical to support the equipment you have coming in? That's also kind of another side of that is plan for tomorrow with your 3 to 5 year plan, right? So we have the same electrician we've had since we moved in that building, same with plumber and HVAC technician. They know the equipment and the layout better than we do. If I called Brandon, our electrician right now, and said, Brandon, I want to put a piece of equipment that's going to be running a 483 phase over here in the northwest corner of our building, what do we need to do? He's going to know what we have available over there. He's going to know, do we need to run another, breaker box over there? But then don't hesitate to tell Brandon that this is the first of what might be 2. If it's 2, is there a way you could just bring in 1 regulator, make a split now, put a valve off of it, and then when you go to install your second piece of machinery, you're not going to have to disturb the first one in production? Same with electrical. Yeah, I don't need to bring over a whole dedicated breaker box now, but maybe it's a good idea that I go ahead and drop in the step-down transformer and have another breaker box over here, because I plan on having another one of these machines, and I need computer workstations at all of them. I need 110 to plug in every employee's stereo, whatever might happen to be. You got to have all that stuff ready to go, right? And then same with natural gas. We've had to add another incoming line of natural gas into our building, and it had to be at a high pressure. That's another thing goes up to the plumbers. Comment up there. Hey, by the way, we need to get 10 PSI in our building. What? Why would you have to do that? Who does that? I just learned the other day that there's something called low pressure gas. What did you say, 2.5%? You buy a piece of equipment, it's 2.5% or PSI going to be enough pressure to be able to run a flame treat? That's all things you want to take in consideration as you purchase your equipment. Go back to electrical real quick. If you tell your equipment provider what your power supply is at your facility, they could build in the necessary transformers or whatever you need to make it easier to install. If you don't do that, what happens is it shows up and Brandon, the electrician, says, oh, by the way, I need to go buy a transformer. Again, slowing down the install process. I want to talk about the frustrating learning curves. We've all been there, we all know what that word is right there coming out of his mouth. Learning new technology will be challenging. I'm going to go back to melting the squeegee. I look back and I kind of laugh at that now, but at the time I was scratching my head, like, what the heck is going on here? But at that time, what's different is I didn't have much of a support network. I hadn't started on these shows. I haven't been doing external communication. I didn't know who to ask what. So since then, I've learned that I don't have to do it alone. So what does your support look like? Support network look like? Is it manufacturers? Call on them. They know. If they don't know, they know somebody who does. Maybe in a different market, would be willing to help you out. Ink suppliers, other decorators, again, different markets, might be willing to have a little discussion. And SGCD. I can't tell you how many times I've personally emailed Myra and said, hey, I got this problem. I don't know what to do about it, and I don't even know who to ask about it. And she's there to help me out. So, again, you don't have to take on learning curves alone. Communication is the key, right? When you have an employee buy-in. Now, I shouldn't have skipped over this so fast. When you're installing new equipment and technology, this is the number one priority. Your number one asset you have is your employee. I've had more conversations at this trade show this year about employee retention, hiring, and the quality of workers coming in, that if you have good workers, you have people you depend on, take care of them, right? And the number one way to do that with new technology is to communicate. Communicate, communicate. If you think you've said it enough times, you haven't. Say it until you're puking it, right? Change is difficult. Make sure your employees know it's going to be difficult. We're going to be frustrated. It's not going to be a smooth transition, right? Communicate the timeline. By the way, this piece of equipment is supposed to show up June 1st. We're going to have the technicians install it with us for 2 weeks. And then we're going to take our guys, our install team, onboarding team, and we're going to play with it for 2 weeks so we can develop how we want you to work on it as an operator. You might not be, how do I say it? We are at a size, over 200 people, to where we no longer have a production floor full of screen printers. We just don't. We have some screen printers, but we have a lot of equipment operators. There's a difference. You want to take this into account when you train too. When you put together a comprehensive training program, do you want to train equipment operators, or do you want to train screen printers? Because it's different. Do you train somebody to be an expert in that particular piece of equipment, or do you train somebody to understand the whole deal? So sometimes it's a hybrid, sometimes it's one or the other, but communicate the timeline. So what I'm saying here, it's coming in June. We're going to work with the technicians for 2 weeks, and then we're going to play with it for 2 weeks, and then we're going to train you how we want you to operate it. So plan on, after your July 4th break, plan on coming back in refresh, and we're going to jump into this, right? Inform them about any changes to the work environment. So you have dedicated employees. They spend, what, at least a half of their waking life working for you, right? Half of their awake life, they're working for you. They might be working for you in their 16 square feet that they work in every day operating their press. This is their world, guys. It is. This is their world. If they come in one day on a Monday morning and that 16 square feet is now over there, and their inks are in a new location, and they got to pick up the screens from a different location, don't think they're not going to get shook. Make sure they understand in advance. We're going to move your press this weekend. It's going to be over here. That way they know what to expect when they come in. Make sure your employees know that their opinions and concerns are important, okay? When you start these conversations, look, we want to know your thoughts, right? We don't want to be managing agreement. Does everybody know what managing agreement is? You know what managing conflict is. Managing agreement is, we're going to sit here as a group, and I'm going to tell you about this new technology, and we're all going to agree that it's a wonderful thing it's going to be for our business, and we're all going to say, yeah, we're all for it, yeah, it's great. And then I'm going to go, have a drink of water. The meeting disperses, and I'm going to come back over, and I'm going to see in each corner of the building, there's little groups of people talking about how much they hate this new technology coming in, right? Let them know that they don't have to go stand in the corner and have this discussion. Have that discussion as a whole. You'll be better for it in the long run. Provide platforms and for employees to provide feedback. There's several ways to do this. And this goes back to making sure that employees know their opinions and concerns are important. Make sure you provide a way to do it. That's direct, taking time to have some direct contact. Now, if you're busy, you can't take all that direct contact, that face-to-face sometimes. Make sure you understand, like, hey, John, you know what? I'm in the middle of about 3 different priorities right now, and yours is not any less than any of them, but can we talk about this at 10? can we come back and talk about this later, right? Make sure they understand that you can't just come interrupt my day because you're scared of new technology, but I am going to take time out of my day to come talk to you, but let's find a way to make that work. Put up QR codes with some kind of way to be able to submit suggestions and give their opinions if you want to. Make that anonymous so they feel like they can do it and not worry about negative feedback. A couple things that we do at work a little different. And the owner does a quarterly town hall meeting. It's open forum. You're able to come, sit down, you hear what's going on. You're going to hear about our financials, and you get a chance to talk to the owner and the directors, the executive team about what's going on. Ask any questions you want. I also host one every 2 months. It's called the Innovation Meeting. Same deal. Open forum. Anybody can come off the press, come on in, talk, sit down. I give an update of what's going on, what to expect. Timelines are updated. New projects are talked about. If you decide not to move forward with the project because it doesn't have a good ROI, we explain to employees why, and then we open up the floor for any kind of discussion. It's like, hey, do you have an idea on how to be more efficient? Let's talk about it. Or, better yet, do you have a problem that you're sick and tired of dealing with for 15 minutes every day and you think there's a way you can automate it on the webpage, right? Let's talk about it. You don't have to live with that problem. And the idea there is that you build a solution-based mindset rather than I'm going to live with the problem mindset. But either way, you're providing platforms for that. And of course, encourage open and honest communication. When it comes to training, that's the next step that I'd say is what you need to do, is provide extensive training. It needs to be very thorough. Ensure that everyone is comfortable and confident with the new technology. And what I mean by training is hands-on training, workshops for all departments. A lot of times it gets lost in just operation, right? So we get this new machine and you decorate this glass with this new technology, it looks really cool, and we're going to teach our operations team all about it. But Art doesn't know much about it. Worse, the sales team doesn't know much about it. You don't want them going out selling something you can't produce efficiently. And of course, marketing. Operating procedures. We were talking about this earlier. Everybody's familiar with the telephone game, right? Right now, if I was to tell you something, you pass it on by the time it came back to me, it'd be totally different. If you don't have a standing operating procedure, that's how the operation of that machine is going to be in a year. You're going to train your first person on it. They're going to do it their way. They're going to lose a couple things, and then they're going to train the next person on it. They're going to find their way to do it, and they're going to do a couple things different or miss a couple important steps. And next thing you know, you walk over there and you're like, why the heck are we doing it this way? Have a standard operating procedure. Ensure that everyone is working safe and efficient. Clearly communicate to all employees. And the most important part, if somebody finds a better way to do it, get a group together, talk about it, say, well, this is the best practice for us, and then update that standard operating procedure. Make sure your employees understand that they have a voice in the operations of the equipment. The last thing is something I want to talk about. We've all phased out technology, right? Let's go back to the value of an employee. You have a press operator on a technology that's getting phased out, and basically it's like, oh, by the way, we're not going to be doing water slide decal anymore because it's not efficient. And this is probably one of the most efficient decal press operators there is in the country. And he's sitting there thinking the whole time, man, I'm not valuable. You got to watch the way you talk about the technology you're phasing out in front of your employees. So watch that. Watch your communication you're giving out. Start the communications early. Hey, by the way, we're going to be phasing out this technology. You know, I want you to know in a year, our goal is in a year we're not going to be doing this anymore. We want to know. We want you to know you're going to be able to switch roles in the company, right? We're not bringing in a new robot to replace anybody. We're bringing in a robot so we don't have to hire anybody new. You got to use your skill where it's needed, right? Ask your employee what they want to do. You know, especially if they build value in a process, they're going to be able to build that same value in another process down the road. Have you thought about what you'd like to do yet? What department you'd like to work in? Is there a skill set they need to develop you can help them? Maybe send them to a couple of really easy classes down at the local community college to help them understand, you know, new to managing others, right? Courses like that. Doing whatever you can to ensure that your employees don't adopt a lack of value mindset. So what happens there is they adopt a lack of value. They're going to be resistant to change because it's now a fear-based mindset. And don't think that employee's not talking to everybody else about it, creating fear on all other levels. So again, protect your employees. All right, so in conclusion, safety first. Plan out your utilities as early as possible. That's nice. Good job, Nevin. Woo. So your 3 to 5 year plan is a roadmap and not a casual exercise. Contractors are accustomed to the measurement system they're at. Well, who is it? From Lucier came up here and said, I only know measure, guys. I'm sorry. You know, you got to see your plumber. Employee buy-in is important. Avoid a fear-based mindset. Communication is everything. And don't forget your SOPs. Does anybody have any questions? Great. Thank you.